Saturday morning from the vast desert of southern New Mexico, Scotty, beam me up, got beamed up himself. Though Trekkies might disagree with this. When characters on Star Trek told actor James Scotty Doohan, the engineer on the Starship Enterprise,
"Energize,"
he probably never dreamt that it would ever really happen. But it did, in a rocket that carried a vial that holds his remains, a single grain.
His only regret in life is that he knew he was not going to live long enough to actually be able to go into space while he was alive. So it's the next best thing.
And also on board, the remains of Gordon Cooper, a real astronaut with the right stuff from the original Mercury 7.
Gordon would have been the first to say, "I'm hopping back on another space flight in a minute." So why would I say no and deny him even that privilege now? And I think it's a great idea. Why not?
This will be at the very top of the rocket.
right behind the American flag.
It's the privilege of riding in this canister along with a gram of ashes from each of 200 others now deceased who either worked in the space program or, if they didn't, still had stars in their eyes. They would shoot toward those stars like a rocket, in fact, in a rocket that represents the still infant stages of commercial space flight. They would take the best ride of their lives, all but Gordon Cooper anyway, at the business end of this 20-foot-long single-stage rocket called Celestis. It would carry them to the edge of space. Other flights could take them into orbit or even deliver them to the moon.
The range of costs really are pretty affordable, ranging from $1,000 to $12,000 to send a gram on any of those missions. We've always tried to keep the service priced roughly equivalent to a funeral service, and we've been successful in doing that.
And here come the people who paid for it.
My father is going to be launched on this flight.
Family and friends who knew what this journey would mean to a loved one who loved space.
He was a huge space fanatic, space advocate, and it was just the most perfect thing to do.
And just to say goodbye to him for the last time, probably, and to sort of have a very positive footnote, and probably one of the saddest events of my life, probably, yeah.
Our oldest boy died in '04, and he was a Star Trek fan from being a little boy, and we heard about this on the internet. We found it on the internet about how to go into space.
Well, I'm having some ashes, actually from 9/11. I collected them off my car windshield wiper because I was about a mile downwind in Brooklyn, and I'm having them launched into space on the rocket.
Just finding the launch site, Spaceport America, is an adventure. It's about 35 miles outside Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, half the way on a dusty dirt road. A reminder that commercial spaceflight, while not brand new, is still in an early stage of life. This is the front gate, hardly on the scale of the Kennedy Space Center, and it makes you think, if you ever want to hide a spaceport, you probably couldn't find a better place. But of course, that's why it's here.
We have the perfect location for inland launch. We've got several things going for us. Our altitude, number one. We're well over 4,000 feet here. So we're 4,000 feet above anyone at sea level. We've got our partner right across the mountains there, White Sands Missile Range, which brings all the infrastructure, all the technology from optics, telemetry, radar, right at our doorstep. So that's available to us also. The weather, as you can tell, is perfect. We can launch here virtually around the year.
Right now, Spaceport America is only an infant. Power comes from a generator. Wind conditions come from a portable tower courtesy of the White Sands Missile Range next door. Radar, too.
Copy.
Launch control is an aluminum hut a mile from the pad, with a few laptops and a firing button in a briefcase. But the future looks bigger. Billionaire entrepreneur Richard Branson of Virgin Atlantic has created a new company called Virgin Galactic, which he calls the world's first space line, and he bills it as the ultimate experience. By 2009, Branson says he's going to launch humans from this desert spaceport, live humans. At $200,000 a pop, space is already being booked.
We're talking now about space tourism, but pretty soon you'll see space used as a way to get from Tokyo to Houston in 90 minutes versus 13 hours. So really, we're like at the very early stages of the aviation industry, and no one really knew that it would become what it is today. But now you can point back to it and say, of course, that's very logical. Well, that's what's going to happen in space commerce.
Well, what you're seeing here today is really the grassroots of Spaceport America. You're standing on Launch Pad 1. And 10 years from now, this will be a buzzing activity, just like an airport. And we expect to be launching many of these every day.
But as its first baby step, the Celestis rocket with a gram of ash from 202 lovers of all things space was Spaceport America's inaugural flight. And the widow of Star Trek's engineer got to rehearse the role she'd play to fire her husband into space.
8, 7, 6, 5, vehicles armed, 3, 2, 1, fire. Beautiful.
On T-1, the day before launch, those who were sending their family and friends toward space got to see the rocket that would carry them there.
I guess just knowing that my husband's cremains are up in there makes it special.
Almost bring me to tears here in a minute, so. But yeah, to think that my dad's going to be able to go up and like this is great.
D?
Sorry. Yeah, it's wonderful for Dad to be doing this. He deserves it.
On launch day itself, the VIP viewing space 3 miles from the rocket was filled with excitement.
MA. MA is a go. Wismer. Wismer is a go. NMSA. NMSA is a go. Thank you, NMSA. Check 18. All systems are go for launch.
A final old-fashioned check on the direction and speed of the wind, and another old-fashioned check on the emotions.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, vehicles armed, 3, 2, 1, fire.
There is no way to know if the passengers enjoyed the ride, but it was easy to figure out that the loved ones who gave them this gift got everything they hoped for.
His dream came true. That's what I was thinking, because he always wanted to go to space. So,
was it everything you expected?
Yeah. Everything.
And after the rocket reached Mach 5, then coasted up to the end of atmosphere and the edge of space,
we have confirmation from radar track that the vehicle is now in space.
it came down again by parachute more than 30 miles away, just 13 minutes after blasting off. But the trip was long enough. What are you thinking right now about your dad?
I'm speechless. It's the most wonderful thing.
If he was alive, he would be alive. He would enjoy this, wouldn't he?
I have a drunk beep.
I know he's enjoying himself right now.
Separation confirmed. Separation confirmed.
Yeah, he is.
Copy, good stuff.
Where do you go when you die? I'm not talking about your soul. Some people want their bodies to go into the heavens, too. The outer limits of that were reached last weekend in a journey that began in the desert. Bill Geist was there for the countdown.
3, 2, 1, ignition, liftoff.
Not since the 1960s had astronaut Gordon Cooper gone into space. But a few days ago, from a launch pad in the New Mexico desert, he had the chance once again. You may have heard about it.
T-minus 30 seconds. 3, 2, 1, mark. 30 seconds.
Also aboard, James Doohan, known to Earthlings as Scotty of Star Trek, making his first spaceflight since the TV series ended.
Scotty is likely to be beamed up from here, but...
The celebrities got all the coverage, but they were joined in the spacecraft by 200 others from all walks of life and death.
We pause at this moment in our countdown to remember and honor the lives of each of the participants. Godspeed, good luck.
These astronauts were all deceased. Small symbolic portions of their ashes blasted into space by loved ones who knew they would have wanted it this way, preferring 73 miles up to 6 feet under. Noel Brazil's husband was on board.
Because it was the perfect thing for him. I mean, he was just a huge space fanatic. He loved everything space. It was the perfect thing.
Like so many others these days, they chose an alternative form of interment.
Well, I think it's fascinating that baby boomers have gone through life changing things, and now we're changing the way we view death.
Michelle Cromer wrote a book on the myriad choices available to today's bereaved. Choices made possible by the skyrocketing trend to cremation.
In 2025, half of us in the United States will actually be cremated. There's just not room anymore. We're a transient society. We don't go back to graveyards.
Companies like Aerial Missions in Washington State will scatter your poor old Uncle Harry's ashes just about anywhere.
These remains are placed in a special crucible.
Life Gem in Chicago will compress your dearly departed into diamonds. Dean Vandenbiesen is a founder of the company.
For the people that do choose this, the whole idea is keeping a loved one close.
That's what led Angela Ravaz to have her husband's ashes made into diamonds.
Anytime I travel, I wear my jewelry and just feel like he's always with me.
She chose 2 blue diamonds, but they can be made into almost any color or cut. Other options abound. You can now blend Grandpa into a soup bowl or goblet. Turn Grandma into a piece of jewelry. Make her part of an ocean reef or even a fireworks display.
And you can put ashes into your fishing rod, or your golf club, or a duck decoy, or a bowling ball. I don't think it's nutty at all. And I want to go into my husband's driver, so he can still blame me when he shanks it.
His golf driver.
His golf driver.
Or you could just put an ounce here and an ounce there, as Susie Van Warmer is doing with the ashes of her husband, Randy.
I went around to all around the world with his ashes. Our favorite place, we used to travel a lot, and I'd leave his ashes.
I've got a ticket for a ship that sails in empty sea.
Randy wrote and sang songs about outer space, but he never got there until now, which is what brought Susie and the other families to the New Mexico desert to join the ride with Gordon Cooper and Scotty. Also there, Charles Chafer, the CEO of Celestis, a company which has a history of doing this sort of thing.
We've got 100 people orbiting the Earth now, which I like to say is more than any country has, so we're in first place on that. We started out about 10 years ago with our first memorial space flight, launching 22 folks, including Gene Roddenberry, the Star Trek creator, and Timothy Leary, the 60s icon, into Earth orbit.
Hundreds of relatives and friends from 10 nations gathered at the New Mexico Museum of Space History for a memorial service the day before the launch.
Supposedly, we are all made of stardust.
Larry Matthews is interring his father's remains in space.
Now you plan to do the same thing, right?
Yes.
Why is that?
It's what I wanted. It's the same love that my father...
Are you involved in this at all?
Oh, I prefer traditional burial with my...
James D. Carufel is sending up some of his father's ashes, but holding some in reserve for a future flight to the moon with his mother's remains.
And when it happens, we can look at it and then see them on the moon, so the man on the moon be mom and dad on the moon.
That's kind of touching.
Celestis offers a variety of space burial packages starting at just $495. Noel Brazil is already looking ahead to future missions.
You had the option to do an orbit or a lunar thing or deep space, and we decided deep space was the way to go, so...
So do you know how much it's going to cost you, roughly?
Probably $12,000.
Launch day arrives early. The mournful, or maybe they're just tired, gather for a 5 a.m. briefing at a local school. The mission looks like a go. So the funeral procession heads for the launch site, the last 27 miles on a bumpy dirt road, finally arriving at the grandiloquently named Spaceport America, which so far is just a couple of trailers, a small launch pad, and today, a tent. There are tense moments. The last attempt to launch ashes into space failed. There were no survivors. But then, there weren't any when they took off either. It was an extraordinary scene this day, part Kennedy Space Center, part memorial service, part celebration, with cheering at the funeral.
Armed, 3, 2, 1, fire. Missile away.
Randy's finally an astronaut.
But one thing seemed clear. No matter how you choose to say goodbye, there will always be tears.
The roar of a powerful rocket engine echoed across southern New Mexico this morning. After a failed attempt last year, today it was a successful blast-off for the company Up Aerospace. State leaders hope many more rockets will soon be dashing across New Mexico's skies from our new spaceport. Our Bob Martin was there today and has a story.
When they first rolled the barn off the rocket this morning, it was breezy and rain was in the forecast. No one was sure weather would allow a launch. During final countdown, a pause to reflect on the 200 souls whose ashes were being carried aloft on this flight.
We wish the friends and families present today and all those who are with us in spirit all over the world Godspeed. Vehicles armed. 3, 2, 1, fire. Missile away.
The single-stage rocket quickly left the atmosphere, floated in space for a couple of minutes before landing about 30 miles away on the Army's White Sands Missile Range. Among those whose ashes were on board, James Doohan, Scotty from Star Trek, and Mercury 7 astronaut Gordon Cooper. Cooper's family says even though he flew into space in real life, they knew what to do when invited to send him up.
If they had asked Gordon to make another space flight, he would have done it in a minute without even thinking. So I didn't think there was any other answer, but yes, of course, absolutely.
Probably few people are as happy about a successful launch as the man who has taken over the job of converting this chunk of New Mexico desert into Spaceport America.
It's a great way to christen Spaceport America and the birth of this new industry in New Mexico.
Next is building better roads and a large runway, in addition to hangars. Tourists may be able to fly into space from here in about 3 years. Bob Martin, KRQE News 13, near TRC.
The weather ended up being really good for them, but that's changing.
Yeah, especially down in that area, so it's a good thing they did it early on.
With a big blast of fire and smoke, New Mexico's new spaceport achieved its first successful rocket flight today. The private company Up Aerospace fired a single-stage rocket some 70 miles into space. The first attempt last year fell short. Now, state leaders say the spaceport will rapidly begin to grow. Our Bob Martin was there today and has the story.
Everyone was a bit nervous. There were paying customers on this flight, 200 families sending ashes of loved ones into space. And Up Aerospace was hoping beefed-up tail fins would prevent a repeat of last year's failure. But you never really know till you light it.
1, fire. Missile away.
Computer simulations proved correct, and the rocket shot straight and true, reaching 4,000 miles per hour in a few seconds, severing all bonds with Mother Earth, at least briefly.
We have confirmation from radar track that the vehicle is now in space.
After a few minutes in space, the payload re-entered the atmosphere and landed on the Army's White Sands Missile Range. Look closely again at Mission Control during countdown. Two ladies push the fire button together.
3, 2, 1, fire. Missile away.
They're the wives of NASA astronaut Gordon Cooper and Star Trek's James Doohan. Ashes of the two men, one real space traveler and one who took our imagination there, rode together.
Jimmy always wanted to go into space, for real, not just as Scotty. And this was one way for him to achieve that, because he knew he was never going to achieve it in his lifetime.
The successful launch was great news for the state of New Mexico, which plans to develop a giant spaceport across this part of the New Mexico desert.
Break ground the first quarter of 2008 and get this spaceport fully operational with Virgin Galactic and other space companies by late 2009, early 2010.
Bob Martin, KRQE News 13, near TRC.
Welcome to space.
From the stars we are born, and so to the stars we return. Leaving the bounds of Earth to touch the cosmos is an experience few ever know, but many more have dreamed about. Now Celestis Incorporated makes it possible to honor the dream and memory of your departed loved one with a final journey into celestial infinity. Celestis first made space memorial history in 1997 with a launch into space that included the remains of the Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry, 60s icon Timothy Leary, and others from all over the world. The Celestis Memorial space flights make your loved one's dream of spaceflight a reality by placing a symbolic portion of cremated remains into Earth's orbit or even beyond. What more appropriate tribute could you give to your loved one than a chance to be a part of the everlasting universe they so loved? This unique approach to honoring and remembering deceased loved ones opens a new frontier in space. Your loved one will venture into space as part of a real space mission, riding alongside a commercial or scientific satellite. The process is simple and completed with the utmost respect and care. A portion of cremated remains is carefully placed inside a permanently sealed flight module. Each module is inscribed with the person's name and a personal message. Flight modules are then loaded into a special vessel and attached to the launch vehicle. On launch day, families gather at the liftoff site to share the experience of seeing their loved one's dream of spaceflight realized. With a roar and fiery streak across the sky, the rocket lifts its precious cargo higher and higher into the peaceful solitude of space. The Celestis Memorial Spaceflight Service offers a variety of options. The flight modules are placed in Earth's orbit where they remain until they re-enter the atmosphere and harmlessly vaporize, blazing like a shooting star in final tribute. Remains can also be placed on the moon to a final resting place on the lunar surface where so few humans have ever walked. Celestis even offers the option of launching your loved one's remains into deep space to become a lasting part of the everlasting universe. With Celestis, you can feel confident that the memory of your loved one is in capable and caring hands. Celestis is the pioneer and unquestioned leader in memorial space flights, personally serving families all over the world who share a common dream.
It's just an extraordinarily emotional experience and a joyous one. It's a closure for some people.
Most parents live vicariously through their children, and I'm living vicariously through my parents and their launch today.
I grew up with the love that he had for space, and this is the most perfect thing that I can think of to do.
I thank you for making this event, this day, this celebration exactly what it is, a tribute.
And to the staff who have made what could be a very difficult and trying experience a delight, a rejoicing, a happy occasion, because the memories, the reality is a happy one.
And my grandma and my papa are going to be the ones that go up in outer space. And I'm very happy for them, and I'm a little bit sad, because I did love them a lot.
I just wanted to say a few words about Bill. He was a wonderful kid. He loved space.
If the launch succeeds, it'll be great to feel that anywhere in the world, when I look up at the sky, my husband will be there.
Memorial spaceflight is an affordable service priced comparable to most conventional funerals. The service includes an invitation to the special memorial service on launch day, as well as a professionally produced video of the event for you and your family to keep and cherish. The name of your loved one will also be permanently enshrined in a dedicated virtual memorial at the Celestis website, an everlasting tribute to their memory and love of space. Additionally, a portion of all proceeds goes to Space Services Foundation, a non-profit organization which supports entrepreneurial space enterprises, educational organizations, and other charities which promote a positive future here on Earth. What could be a more fitting tribute to someone who so loved and so longed for adventure in space? The Celestis Memorial space flights make it possible to go where so few have dared to venture. For more information, visit our website at memorialspaceflights.com or call 1-866-7-ROCKET. Celestis, a mission of purpose, a dream fulfilled, a commemoration of love, a step into the universe.
Two space explorers, one real, one science fiction, made their last voyage today.
2, 1, fire. Missile away.
A rocket launched from New Mexico this morning held a few grams of the ashes of Mercury astronaut Gordon Gordo Cooper and actor James Doohan, best known as Scotty, the chief engineer of Star Trek's USS Enterprise.
Power leak is unbalanced the ship and she's starting to drift. I can't hold her in place that long.
The rocket soared 70 miles into space before the tiny capsules that held the ashes fell back to Earth. Not far into the final frontier, but still a fantastic final ride. And that is the CBS Evening News. I'm Sharon Alfonsi, CBS News in New York. Good night.